Okay, we are learning Sukka Daf Mem Gimel. We just started the fourth parak. The Gemara told us that Lulav Va'arava is going to be Shisha V'Shiva. That means there are times when Lulav and Arava will be Deicha Shabbos, and there are times when it won't be Deicha Shabbos. And the Mishnah said that when Sukkot, the first day of Sukkot falls out on Shabbos, it's Deicha Shabbos. If any other day falls out on Shabbos, then it's not Deicha Shabbos. And Arava is the opposite. If the last day, the seventh day, will fall out on Shabbos, it'll be Deicha, and if not, then it won't be. And this is what we're going to discuss today. Here we go. We're starting on the bottom of Mem Beis Amid Beis. What's the issue with Lulav and Shabbos? Tildil Ba'almo Velidchi Shabbos. What's the issue? At most, it's a derabanan of muktzah, and it really shouldn't even be muktzah. So there shouldn't be any issues. So what's the problem? Amarabba gezer shemitlanu biyad v'yelech eitzel baki lilmoid v'yavivenu Abrahamis b'shus Rabba. Rabba says there's a big concern that someone's going to want to know. Rashi says how to shake the lulav or what, how to make the bracha, and he's going to take his lulav to a baki, to an expert, and he's going to walk for Amos and b'shus Rabba. But time the shefer, and this is the same reason why we don't pull shefer when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, and this is the same reason why we don't read Megillah when Purim falls out on Shabbos. So then why make a chiluk? If we have such a concern, then even when the first day of Yom Sukkot falls out on Shabbos, we should not be taking the lulav on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, remember the Mishnah said that they made a takana that you have to take lulav in your house because it was getting a little too levidik in the Beis Hamikdash when they were throwing out the lulav to everybody. So they said everybody should take it in their house. Okay, that's fine after the takana, but before the takana was made, why weren't we concerned? There should have been this gezerah. So Gemara says that Ella, okay, so that's not the issue. El Rishon the Isay Minatera Begvulin. Again, even though we're talking about in the Beis Hamikdash, where the mitzvah da'iraisa is all 7 days, Chazal made a gezerah. Sorry, they made the gezerah that you shouldn't take the lulav because of Shem Yelech Arba Amos versus Ram. But they did not make the gezerah on the first day of Yantif because being that that's mitzvah deraisa everywhere, it's like more chashuva day. It's a more chashuva mitzvah, and therefore they weren't geyser on that mitzvah. But on the other mitzvah, on the rest of the Yom Tov, where there was no mitzvah big vulin, it was only in the mikdash, so there they were geyser. So if that's the case, so nowadays also, why can't we take the lulav on the first day of Yom Tov? So Mar says anan layadinan b'kivat diyarcha. We don't know the calendar. We don't know exactly when Yom Tov is supposed to be. Taisus makes the point here. Well, of course we know. Taisus says in the third Taisus, Lav mishum d'lo yadinan, not because they don't actually know. The Amrin and Breish Beya, the Idna Yadinan. We do know. So that was the gezerah that Chazal look at Yom Tov Sheni as if we don't know B'kvi Diyarcha. So that the Chazal were goes that we have to look at it as a suffix. Being that it's a suffix, we have to look at it as a suffix. So in Mela, we can't be Deicha Shabbos. So Anan Le'edinu B'kiv Diyarcha. Inu Diadi B'kiv Diyarcha Litchu. So Gemara says, okay, so then at least in Eretz Yisrael where they have the Kvi Diyarcha, so then they only have 1 day Yom Tov, so they should be Deicha Shabbos on the first day of Yom Tov. When Sukkot falls out on the first day of Sukkot falls out on Shabbos, so they should take lulav. Gemara says, you're right, they do. They should. Well, it's going to change, but for now, they should. Says the Gemara, could you have a steam embraces? In one Mishnah, that was on Daf Beis Amid Beis. But we have another Mishnah that says Lebeis HaKnesses. Everybody would take it to the Beis HaKnesses. That was the end of the last parak. So which one is it? Are they taking it to the Beis Medrash, the Beis HaKnesses, or are they taking it to the Beis Hamikdash? Oh, says Gemara Shema. So in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, they would take it to the The Mishnah over there was talking. The Mishnah, the beginning of the paragraph was talking about the Bisman Hamikdash, so that everybody would take the lulav to the base of Hamikdash. The Mishnah of everyone was taking it to the base of Knesset, so you see that it was Doicha Shabbos, was talking about in Eretz Yisrael on the first day, when the first day fell out on Shabbos. Okay, so at this stage of the Gemara, there's a difference between Eretz Yisrael and in Chutz La'aretz. In Chutz La'aretz, you would not take the lulav on the first day of Yom Tov, and in Eretz Yisrael, you would if it fell out on Shabbos. Okay. Now, says the Gemara, the Isam and Aterbek Vulmanon. Where do we know that there's a mitzvah deraisa to take the lulav on the first day outside of the Beis Hamikdash? The Tanya we learned in a brayso. L'kachtam shedei l'kicha b'chad b'yad kol echad v'echad. First thing we learned is that l'kachtam, plural. Tesha said everybody has to take a lulav and asher. Okay, mishal lochem, it's got to be yours. Like it's a shov as a guzzle, can't be borrowed or stolen. B'yayim, afilu b'Shabbos. The pasuk says b'yayim. I could have just said l'kachtam l'chem b'rishon. What's b'yayim rishon? To tell you that even on Shabbos, rishon afilu b'gvulin. Harishon. Rishon means that Taisa says it's Rashi. I'm sorry, says it's not because it's an extra. You need to say Rishon. Rather, the drasha is it doesn't say anywhere specifically the mikdash. So it's mashma l'katochem b'yem Rishon. It's talking about it everywhere. Okay, so afilu b'gvulin. Harishon the first day malamet she'ena decha ela yom tov harishon bilvad. It's only the first day of Rosh Hashanah of Sukkot that is going to Abidoicha Shabbos. Okay, now we're going to dissect this brayso. Amar b'yayim va'afilu b'Shabbos. Michti. Why do I need a pasuk to tell me you're allowed to take a lulav on Shabbos? Tiltal ba'amhu. There shouldn't be any issue. Somebody says itzrich kra lemishri tiltal. Do I need a pasuk to allow you to move something? Amar Rava le'nitzrucha el machshirei lulav. This pasuk is only necessary not for taking lulav itself, but what happens if you didn't have a lulav? And I have a beautiful lulav growing outside on my tree. Can I go cut it down? Well, Rabbi Eliezer says that machshirim are also mutter. The Tanya, lulav v'chol machshir v'dechan Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says lulav and all of the things you would need to prepare your lulav are deicha Shabbos, and that he learns out from b'yayim. My time is Rabbi Eliezer, Amar Kra b'yayim, v'afilu b'Shabbos. Okay. V'Rabbanan, who disagree with that. Hi b'yayim ma'avdil. So what do they? They don't need a pasuk to be matter taking the lulav. So what do they use the word b'yayim for? Says the Gemara, mibayle b'yayim v'lei b'layla. You need to take it by day and not by night. The mitzvah is only by day and not by night. Rabbi Eliezer, b'yayim v'lei b'layla minali. How does he know that? Nafkalei misayv the great learns it from the end of the pasuk. The end of the pasuk says, "Usmachtem lifnei Hashem lekechem shivas yamim, yamim v'lei leilos." Okay, so there he has it. V'Rabbanan. Why did Rabbanan just learn from the end of the pasuk, and therefore they have the extra b'yam to tell you machshirin? V'Rabbanan imeasam havim in the leil of yamim misukah. If that was it, if I was learning from yamim, then I would have said it that I should learn out from sukkah. It says by sukkah malalan yamim. It says by sukkah steishu shivas yamim. Well, there when it says yamim, it doesn't mean days and as opposed to nights, it means days and nights. So when it says malalan yamim vafilu leilis, afkan nami yamim vafilu leilis. I would say if I was learning from the end of the pasuk, I would have included the nights as well. And if I need b'yayim to tell me only day and not night. The sukkah gufim and all. Well, how do you know that when it says the sukkah teishu shivas yamim, it means day and night? Maybe it only means by day. Mar says the Torah about it. Now you got to hold cup here. Minol, the Torah about it. The sukkah teishu shivas yamim, yamim vafilu levis. Okay, that's what we want to say. That's what you want to say. But maybe maybe it just means day and not night. Vidinu. And it actually makes sense to say that. Because Namar Khan Yamim, V'Namar Belulav Yamim. Oh, let's go the other way. It says by Sukkah Yamim and it says by Lulav Yamim. Malalan Yam V'Leilis, Afkan Yam V'Leilis. Just like by Lulav, it's by day and not night. Just maybe over here also it means that. Oi, Mar says, or maybe you could dash in the pasuk a different way. Namar Khan Yamim, V'Namar B'Miluim Yamim. It says Yamim here by Sukkah, and it says Yamim by the Miluim. The mitzvah there was that you had to stay. Miluim was when they put up the Mishkan. It says the Pesach oil made tishu yom v'layla. It says you have to be there day and night, and there it says also you're there for 7 days. So there, the days meant day and night. So so who should we learn from? Should we learn Sukkah from Lulav, or should we learn Sukkah from Miluim? Says the Gemara's Nir Lamidaime. What is it more similar to? Dan and Davashim Mitzvah Kol Hayim, Midavashim Mitzvah Kol Hayim. The Chayr makes more sense to learn from the Miluim, just like Sukkah, the mitzvah is all day, as opposed to the Lulav, which is only for a moment. So if Al Yechich Davashim Mitzvah Sha'achas, don't learn out from something which the mitzvah is only a moment, so it would make more sense to say the Yamim by Sukkah, I should learn from the Yamim of Miluim, which is all day, as opposed to Lulav, which is only for a moment. Oi, says the Gemara, or maybe you can learn it like this. Dan and Davashim Mitzvah L'Dairos. Miluim was only for that time. That mitzvah was only given that time. It wasn't generational. So therefore, it makes more sense to learn Sukkah from Lulav because they're both Nageya for all the generations. So Dan and Davashim Mitzvah L'Dairos, Davashim Mitzvah L'Dairos, Alichich Miluim, She'nagim L'Dairos. Don't learn out from the Miluim, which aren't for forever. Talmud Laimer the Torah tells us Teishu L'Gzera Shava. Oh, we have L'Gzera Shava. Teishu. It says Never Kan Teishu Never Miluim Teishu. Mala La Never Bafilu Leilos Avkanem Bafilu Leilos. So that's why the Rabbanan are learning from V'Smachtim Chav Meish and L'Gam Shivas Yamim. Yamim would have learned that from the Miluim because of L'Gzera Shava, and therefore I would have said days and nights. I would have thought you would have to take Lulav by day and by night. They never need the pasuk by Yom to tell you otherwise. And Rabbi Eliezer learns from Yamim from Lulav from Sukkah, and therefore he learns that it's only by day and not by night. And therefore the actual word by Yom is telling me even on Shabbos, and it's come to tell me that if you learn Machshirei Lulav, it would be much to do on Shabbos. Okay. But it comes out, you only need the pasuk according to Rabbi Eliezer, not according to the Rabbanan, to be matter till the Lulav on Shabbos. Okay. Now we move on to our Rava. Arava Shiva Ketzad. We said that Arava, the mitzvah of Arava, we'll see again. The mitzvah of Arava was taking an Arava, and we'll see it's a machlekes if it meant walking the Arava around the mizbeach, standing it up next to the mizbeach, or walking around with your lulav and your Arava around the mizbeach. So let's get started. Arava Shiva Ketzad. Says the Gemara, Arava b'shvi my time medachi Shabbos. Why would Arava be doicha Shabbos? Well, the Rav doesn't say explicitly in the Torah that you do this avodah, and the Baisusim, the Tzedukim, they didn't do the Harava, this avodah. So we wanted to make sure everybody knew that this was a mitzvah d'oraisa, and therefore it was Deicha Shabbos. To let it be known that it's Minat Torah. Well, why don't we do the same thing for Lulav? Gemara says Lulav. We have the problem with Rabba when it comes to Lulav. Gemara says, so let's make a gzer for Rabba also when it comes to Arava. He says, no, Arava shluchei bezdin maisi law. It was the shluchei bezdin that would bring it, but Lulav akomaser. Lulav everybody's bringing. So therefore, we only made the gezerah when it comes to everybody, not to the shluchei bezdin. Okay. Well, then why don't we bring the Arava? Why don't we allow it to be Deicha Shabbos whenever Shabbos falls out? Why only on the 7th day of Yom Tov? Gemara says because then Asi lepikpuke b'lulav, because then they'll think, oh, I guess this is more chashiv than lulav. Lulav is less chashiv than this, and therefore it's Deicha all the days, not only the first. So we don't want to do that. Okay. Says the Gemara, Vilitchi b'yam rishon. Well, why are we doing the 7th day? Why don't we do the first day? Gemara says, you wouldn't know that that there's this concept of a Rav that's Deicha Shabbos, which is the point we're trying to bring through. Because Amri, people will say Lulav Udekadachi, because they'll say, oh, I guess Lulav is Deicha Shabbos. That we know because it says in the Torah. But a Rav, I guess, is like shupped along. Okay. Well, why couldn't it be done any other time that Shabbos fell out on Yom Tov? Why'd it have to be the 7th day? Given the Kamafkas Lamirishan, Ukmiyashvi. It's just cleaner that way. Rashi says, it says you need a specific day, either the first or the last. Okay, so that's how we got to Lulav as being Deicha the 7th day, because it's either the first or the 7th. Being that's not the first, it's going to be the 7th, and we're being Matcha Shabbos K'dei Lafarsa Shuman Atera. Okay, says the Gemara, Iachi ha'idna nami litchi. So why can't we be doicha nowadays also? Rashi says about halfway down in Rashi, ha'idna nami la'achar churban the avdina na rava chad yema. Nowadays, where we do a rava for one day, come on, like we're going to see later on Dalit, that it's a minig neviim, big vulin. Kivan the lakla mechashmidi litchi b'shvi v'yet lo v'yechav tuha shluchei bezin lefars mashi b'mikdash menatera. We should have the shluchim bezin do this minig of our rava at least on day 7. There's no need; you don't have to worry about exera because it's a shluchim bezin doing it. And la'achar chorban migazor, no one made a gezerah against doing it. So why can't we have this shluchim? Meaning there wasn't that kind of shluchim bezin doing our rava on the street. That's what was going on. So let that continue. And we never instituted a new gezerah about this. So let it continue. Says so nowadays it should be deicha. We should shluchim bezin should be bringing that rava. But it says anan le'yadina b'kviyad yarcha. Well, out here in Eretz we don't have kviyad yarcha. Same issue. So it's a suffix. Well, the Gemara says, well, the yadi b'kviyad yarcha l'tchi. Well, in Eretz Yisrael, at least it should be deicha Shabbos. Again, if the 7th day of Yom Tov falls out on 7th day of Sukkot, Hashem Rabbah fell out on Shabbos, you should have a rava, but shluchei besen. Says the Gemara, ki asa bar hedya, Amar when bar hedya came to Eretz Yisrael, he says, loy ikla. It doesn't happen. The Bezdin makes sure that the 7th day of Sukkot should not fall out on a Shabbos. Maybe they add a day to El or to a different one of the months if they see that that's going to happen. So Lo Yikla doesn't happen. Now, we'll come back to the Tesis makes a very important point here, but we'll come back to that in a minute. Says the Gemara, Ki asa Ravin b'chol nachusei. When Ravin and all the people who were traveling with him came to Eretz Yisrael, they said, Ikla, sure it does. And we don't push off Shabbos. We don't bring that Rava on Shabbos. Ve'alakasha, then we're back to Akasha. Why not? Amar Yosef, man le'im Rava ben Netila. Who said anything about a Rava being ben Netila, taking it, walking, holding it? Dilma bezakifa. Maybe all they did was put it up on the Mizbeach. There wasn't this procession or shaking it or walking around with it. Maybe all they did was put it on the side of the Mizbeach. And if that's the case, if all they did was put it on the side of the Mizbeach, well, being that there's no Mizbeach, then there's something to do. What we do is like a remiss to that, but it's not the avodah of our Rava. And therefore, again, what was the whole concern? Even nowadays, we should do this avodah of a Rava, so people should know that a Rava is midiraisa. But if a Rava midiraisa is doing it on the Mizbeach, and that we don't have, so then the Beis have nothing to talk about. So there's no need to be deicha Shabbos for a Rava if we're not doing a Rava the way it was done in the Beis Hamikdash. That's what Rabbi Yosef says. Now, Abai is like 1 second. You telling me, Rabbi Yosef, that the avodah of a Rava was only bizakifa? There was no, walking around the Mizbeach with it? Abai asks, Lulav v'arava shisha v'shiva. The Mishnah says Lulav and Arava were 6 and 7. My love Lulav, wasn't the avodah the same? That they both walked around the Mizbeach with it? He says, no, my Lulav ben Netila, Arava ben Netila. Just like the answer is, my Lulav ben Netila, Arava ben Netila. He says, me, what kind of raya is that? Hakadisa, just because it's mentioned here, it doesn't mean they did the same things with them. Okay, so that's out. Abaya is a different challenge. Oh, it says every day they went around the Mizbeach 1 time, and on Hashanah Rabbah they would go around the Mizbeach 7 times. My love ba'arava, doesn't that mean they went around the Mizbeach with the arava and the lulav, but they went around with both? It says lie. Rav Yosef says no, they only went around with the lulav, not with the arava. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba ba'arava. Rav Nachman said in the name of Rabbi Arava, they went out there Rava. What we do? I'm glad for him. He says they went around with the Arava. I'm telling you, they went around with the lulav, not with the Arava. Okay, so machlokes. What was this avodah of Arava? Was it just bizakiva? They put it up on the mizbeach and they leaned it against the mizbeach, or was it like the lulav? You went around with it. Okay. Itmar. Rebbe Lazar says, Belulav. Rebbe Lazar says they went around with the lulav, like Rebbe Yosef. Rav Shmuel bar Nasan, Amr Rav Chanina ba'arava. V'chein Rav Nachum Amr Rav Arvua ba'arava. So they disagree. Amalei Rav Rav Yitzchak Brei Rav Chana. Rava said to Rav Yitzchak, the son of Rabbi Bar Chana, not Rabbi Bar Ravua, Rabbi Bar Chana, he said, Bar Uri ben Torah. He said, let me tell you something that your father would say. Now, this is again Rava saying to Rav Yitzchak, the son of Rabbi Bar Rav Chana. He said, this is the Mishnah says, this that we say that there was a cup around the Mizbeach once, and the Shan Rabbi 7 times. Your father said over in the name of Rebbe Lazar that this was done belulav, like Rabbi Yosef said, not with the arava. Okay. We have big machlekes here. Eisvei, Gemara challenges again. Lulav deiches Shabbos b'tchilase, be'arava b'seifei. Lulav is deiches Shabbos the first day, and the arava is deiches Shabbos b'seifei on the 7th day. Pamachas chal shvi shel arava. The 7th day fell out on Lios b'Shabbos, fell out on Shabbos. So Shan Rab fell out on Shabbos. The Hevioi Marbios Shalarav, they brought these rubber plants in the Erev Shabbos. Mehemichum Bazar, and they placed them in the Azar. The Kiru Behen Baisusin, the Baisusin, again, who did not hold that Arava was Menatayra. So they saw them. Vinatlam, and they hid them. They took them the Kavshim, and they hid them Tachas Avanim under stones. Why did they hide them under stones? Because the stones are muktzah. So then the Rabban are going to have a dilemma. Here do we move the stones to get out the Aravas or not? So that was the Baisusin's plan. Lamarcha the next day, Hikiru ben Ameyaretz. The Ameratzim saw the Aravas under the rock and like, that doesn't look right. And Rashi says that these are Ameratzim. The Ameratzim, they didn't know the halachas of Tiltul Muktzah. But they were on the side of the Prushim. So they saw these Aravas, that doesn't look right. So Vishamtam, they took them out from under the stones. The Kahanim brought them, and they set them up on the side of the Mizbeach. Because the Baisusim did not agree that Chibur Arava is Deiches Shabbos. So what do you see? Well, what's Chibur Arava mean? Chibur Arava, Rashi learns, we learn that Chibur means, hitting. Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi says, the third to last line in Rashi. So first he tells you Yisrael couldn't go into between the Ul and the Mizbeach. Now that it says Chibut, so they would take them by hand, and they would shake them, and the Kahanim would surround the Mizbeach on their feet, and only afterwards they would stand them up. So Rashi learns Chibur Arava means, which the Gemara is also understanding, is that there was a netila involved. You were taking it and you were moving, you were walking around the Mizbeach with it. So what do we see? We see that the avodah of Arava wasn't just standing it against the Mizbeach, not like Rabbi Yosef, but rather it was taking it. It was binatila. Alma binatila he. So then now we see that it was actually done binatila. So that's tiyufta. So we finally shlugged up Rabbi Yosef. If we shlugged up Rabbi Yosef, it comes out that minhag of Arava was to walk around the Mizbeach with the Arava, which would mean the corollary to that would be nowadays we would walk around the bima with a Arava. And if that's the case, so we can still do that avodah today. So we're back to our kasha. So then why don't we do it on Shabbos? Ve'ela nitchu, kivan, ve'ela nitchu. So then we should, the Hashana Rabbah should push off Shabbos. Says the kivan danan leidachinan inu nami leidachu. Since we aren't kivan danan leidachinan inu nami leidachu. So since we don't, meaning in Chutz La'aretz, we don't take it, they're not going to take it in Eretz Yisrael either. Since we don't take it because we're not being, because we're not, we have to be noyig that we don't know the Kfir the Yarcha. So maybe in Eretz Yisrael they're not going to take it either. But what about the first day that we're not deicha, but they are? They'll take lulav on the first day. Where it says no, they won't either take lulav on the first day of Yom Tov. 1 second. They don't take lulav for the end of. What about those mishnayos? Didn't we say that one mishnah said that when they were used to bring it to the Beis HaKnesses, and one said they brought it to the Beis HaMikdash? He said, "Kan kodim churban, kan acher churban." Elakasha hanitarti. We have a kasha to steer these two mishnayos. The Tanachad the Kolam Elichet Zulavein Al Harbais Betani Idach LeBeis HaKnesses. Mitartzina, and we answered Kamas Ben Beis HaMikdash Kamas Ben Shein Beis HaMikdash. Where it says lie, that's not true. Either Bezman Beis HaMikdash. They're both talking about when the Beis HaMikdash was around. But like Kasha Kan B'Mikdash Kan B'Gvulin. It's talking about those are both talking about when the Beis HaMikdash was around, and the distinction was just if you were in the Beis HaMikdash or you were outside the Beis HaMikdash. But in Chutz La'aretz, or I'm sorry, Shalai Bizman Beis HaMikdash when the Beis HaMikdash is not around, you don't take lulav on Shabbos, even in Eretz Yisrael. Rashi says, why not? Shalai La Tap Rashi Shalai Lasis Yisrael Agudais Agudais. Because if you're going to do that, it's going to look like there are two terrorists, people doing different things in Eretz Yisrael and in both, so we don't do that. Lamaisa, what do? We walk around with the Arav. We don't even walk around with Aravas. We walk around with a lulav. How did that come in? A lulav was only according to Rabbi Yosef. According to Abaya, you weren't walking around with a lulav. The avodah of Arava was to walk around with an Arava around the mizbech and therefore around the bima. Why are you walking around with a lulav? So I forgot who it was. The Mesivta brought down somebody who understood the Bach. The Bach has this kasha, and the Bach says that Abaya also agrees that when they would walk around, they wouldn't walk around with just the lulav, with just the Arava. They would also walk around with the lulav. So it was just the argument was were they only walking around with the lulav, or were they walking around with the lulav and an arava? So even though we don't walk around with the arava, we still walk around with the lulav. Okay. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow. It's a shame.